Mr. J.R. Larose is joining us all the way from Vancouver. And for those of you that don't know this man, you are an ex-CFL player who's played for the Edmonton Eskimos. And you've played for the BC Lions. Won a great cup with them. We'll talk about that afterwards. But your story inspired me so much. And the fact that you made the trip from Vancouver and you're able to stop by the podcast, I'm super appreciative of that. But there is something more to you than just having played in the CFL and accomplished all these other things on the field. And what blew my mind about you is that you have this backstory that I'm obviously you're gonna share it with us, and I hope you can give us as much detail as possible. But the breakdown of it is you're a man that grew up, as I understand it, without a father figure.
Yep.
With a mother that had had some complications, some health complications due to some addiction.
Yep.
And you had lost your sister as well.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that. So I can't tell you I'm a man that knows how you feel because I haven't gone through that. Mm-hmm. But despite everything that you've been through, you've managed to raise two beautiful boys. You have a family of your own. Yeah. You go around speaking to people in the community, whether it's First Nations communities, and you don't seem to pick and choose, but that's a little bit of your background, and that's so inspirational. And I didn't want to do the whole cliche of talking about the CFL or football, which I'm sure we'll touch up on, but I wanted you to take us maybe from the very beginning. Yep. What was it that made you thrive in a situation where most people would have crumbled?
First off, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm very grateful for that. For me, I knew at a young age that I didn't want to become a product of my environment. Growing up without a father was tough. As a child, I hated. I was gifted athletically, and I would go. I'd play. I'd be on the basketball team, the volleyball team, and what killed me, after each game was I would look off to the side, and I wouldn't have any family members there to support me. And so for me, that crushed me. I hated that feeling, and even, it's like yesterday. I can remember that looking around, and my mother had struggled with addiction, so she wasn't there to support me. Truth be told, I didn't have any real family members support me, come to any of my games until I was 18 years old playing junior football. Wow. So you think about a kid being athletic growing up from I started playing in grade 6, sports, to 18 years old. Having my first blood family member coming to watch me play, that was tough. But at that young age, I remember making a vow, saying one day I'm gonna have kids, and I'm not gonna have my kids go through the same thing that I went through. It's the power of choice. There's no secret to success, but I think some of the things that we go through really have an impact. And for me, I was like, I'll never have my kid go through what I went through, because it was tough and it was hurtful. So for me, I didn't want to become a product of my environment. And oftentimes we don't become a product of our environment; we become a product of our choices.
So when did you, if I could stop you for a second, when did you realize this? Like you're speaking about this now as a grown man with a family.
Yep.
And obviously there's a crazy story behind it, but you speak about knowing that you didn't want to be a product of your environment. Are you realizing this at 14, 15, 12?
I think it was 12. When I was about 12 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I realized.
That is amazing.
Because I had gone to, I was raised in a church, or I started attending church when I was about 9 or 10 years old. It was
this just because your mom took you, or is this
no?
Something you did
it was
on your
actually own? One of my cousins got me involved in the church, and it was a Saturday thing where the church had a little outreach thing. It was called Kids on Track on the West End. So the bus would come pick me up, it was a van, pick me and my cousin up, and the only reason I decided to go was because they fed us, and so I was like, free food and they play games, I'm in. And so I would go,
especially to an athlete.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And so I would go to this place, and I met this family that was there, and they were absolutely awesome. They ended up taking me in for a few years when I was in high school. But I had realized, I was like, wow, like the people don't just have to, you don't have to live in poverty. I was raised in I was on welfare, grew up on welfare, for the majority of my life. And this family was, they were well off. They lived in a beautiful house. And I was like, I want this. So every time I went back, it was like going back to this harsh reality of like, I don't want this. I've seen the other side. Yeah. Now, how do I get to that? And for me, the real determining factor.
It's not an illusion; it's real.
Yeah, it's real. I had a taste of it. Like it was,
you know, the way you get high off things and you suffer with addiction. It's not that. It's substantial. It's real. It's.
Yeah, and so for me that was, and then going back, you know, and I remember going back to home where there was no food in the fridge. Like my mom would use up the money that we had on, you know, when she was struggling with her addictions on drugs, you know, and so I remember going to school and I would just have maybe 2 pieces of bread and nothing to put on it. Like, you know, that was my reality. I remember picture this, grade 9. You know, I'm from Edmonton. I was raised here.
I was going to ask you. So, is this family the story you're telling us now? This happened in Edmonton.
Yeah, this all happened in Edmonton.
Were you born here?
I was born. Yeah, I'm born and raised here.
Which hospital?
Yeah, the Roy Alec.
Me too.
Yeah, really?
Go on with the story.
And so, being in grade 9, you talk about, you know, not knowing where your next meal was going to come from. I would go to Kingsway Garden Mall. So I went to, I was raised, I can't remember the name of the school, but they had blue townhouses right across from the stadium, these low-income housing units. They're now apartments there. What I would do after school is I'd ride my bike to Kingsway Garden Mall.
Yeah.
And I didn't have money to buy food. So what I'd do is I'd sit off in the food court and I would watch other people eat and just pray and hope that people wouldn't throw their leftover food away, because if they didn't, I would eat other people's leftovers. Like that was my reality, you know, growing up. Picture that, grade 9, that's what, 14, 15 years old. You know, so for me to go from getting a taste of living this good life, you know, on the weekends, to now I'm coming back to my reality of during the week, I don't know where I'm getting my food. I'm eating people's leftover food. And I remember this, I'd always hover around the area of the A&W because I love burgers. You know, I laugh about it now, but at the time, like I was like, that's how I'm gonna get food. You know, I'm praying other people wouldn't throw that leftover food. And I remember also, now that we're talking about it, as a younger child, probably about between 8 and 10, I would always sneak into Eskimo games and I'd run on the field after. But after that, I would always go and walk on the concourse where, you know, you'd go and buy food. And what I would do is I would knock on the doors and I would ask if they had, because they'd throw the food away. And so for me, I remember this one time they gave me a bag full of hot dogs. And I remember coming home and it was like I had won the lottery. You know, I was like, man, I got these hot dogs. I'm good. I can eat for a month on this, right?
Yeah.
Come to find out, they don't last very long. It starts to get moldy. But for me, you know, that was my reality, you know, growing up. So for me, it was like, man, going to the other side, I realized that there's so much more to life, and I wanted that. You know, I didn't want to starve or have my kids raised up in this environment that I was raised up in.
So in this house that you were in, that reality check that you got where you saw the potential of the other side,
yep.
You know, that the grass might be greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Did you stay close with that family?
Yeah.
Or was that a reality you kept leaving constantly? Like, was there a point where they actually brought you in and really helped you more than just kind of showing you around or providing you with a meal here and there?
Yeah.
Did they actually?
It started off weekends that I would go and sleep over, and then it ended up being where they just took me in. You know, there were a couple things happened in my family that was just really bad, and it came to a point where child welfare, I was about to be apprehended. And they stepped in and asked my mom if they would allow me to go and stay with them. And my mom said yes, and that was the best, probably the hardest decision, but the best decision that my mom, you know, ever made. You know, that family helped get me involved in football. You know, that was the first time where I'd seen what, you know, you sitting down as a family to eat, you know, together.
Yeah.
I'd never seen that. You know, that's something I seen on TV. And now I'm like, I'm here, we're doing this. And, you know, I'd lived with them for about 4 years. And then it was like, for me, you know, they were a strict family. They were a great family, you know, very religious, loved them, ended up calling them mom and dad. You know, that's who they were to me.
Do you still keep in touch with them?
Yeah, I still keep in touch. But it came to a point where, you know, I was a teenager. I was becoming a young man, and growing up, you know, they didn't want me talking to girls.
Yeah, you're not perfect. Yeah.
You know, I was like, you know, I was full of testosterone. And I was like, man, I want to talk to girls. And so I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm moving back home. And
Well, we were doing stupid shit, and we weren't going through half the stuff you were going through. So can you imagine, like, who's going to blame you?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You know, and so, but I felt so good at that house. Like I tell people, I was like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It was a big white house. I remember the street name. I don't remember where I used to live at, 5 years ago, but I remember this house where I lived at, 20 some odd years ago. It's 455 Heffernan Drive, in Terwilliger. It was phenomenal.
Terwilliger,
oh yeah, man. I was the only colored person on that block, man. A big white house. Yeah, I thought I was the man. And
did you have the bright yellow shirt and the sideways blue hat?
Oh man, I didn't. I had some just nappy hair. They didn't know what a barber was, so they just took me to just was it super cuts or something, whatever it's called. And they just butchered my hair. But
so was that the family that got you involved in football?
Yeah.
Was that the start of your football career?
That was the start.
Was this in high school or junior high?
This was community, so grade 9.
Okay.
Yeah, grade 9.
How'd you feel about football when you first stepped on the field?
I loved it. For me, it was like I remember my very first football practice. It was like love at first sight.
Was it something you had to work harder than most guys, or did you find that your talent came very natural?
Yeah, it was very natural for me. It was
so you could hit.
Yeah, but I played offense at first, so I was a running back.
Okay,
and so I had to learn how to take some hits. And then after,
you put on some muscle.
I was like, let me be on the other end of this. Let me deliver this blow.
Exactly.
And but I remember my first football practice. It was such an amazing feeling because I grew up an angry child as well. Like I had some stuff happen to me. You talking about, I was a kid.
Well, you had reasons.
Yeah, you talking about being abused, sexually abused. And I'd lived with that shame and embarrassment for so long that football became an outlet for me. Of course. It's controlled violence. And so that was the first place where I was able to, really hit people and be okay with it, not get in trouble, right? I couldn't hit people in school anymore. I was getting suspended,
of course.
For starting fights at school. To now, I can take out this aggression, this controlled environment, and that's it. It's done. Boom, I made a hit.
Worst case scenario, might get a foul.
Yeah, but I'm done.
Yeah,
and it was just great. It was such a great experience, even with the coaches. Growing up.
I was going to say, you must have had that team camaraderie and the coach being like a father figure, no?
Did you 100. Okay. Especially not having any positive male interactions.
Like it fills so many
for
gaps.
This place, it's like you talk building up your self-esteem. People patting you on the back, telling you great job. I hadn't had that.
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, I'm like, wow, like these guys really care. Like this is nuts. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But come to find out that that's the norm for majority of people. But not for
They're
me.
Leaving
where
that
I was
field, going home to mom and dad, going home to bigger brothers, younger brothers, whatever.
So football ended up being my safe place. School became my safe place.
Makes sense.
For many years.
Makes sense.
So,
wow. I can't even imagine. Your football career obviously guided you in the right direction because, as we'll talk in a little bit, when did you want to take football to the next level? Obviously, you were very good at it. You're telling us that camaraderie that you felt, that family that you never really had at home per se wasn't was always there for you. But when did you feel like, hey, there's something here? Was it a coach? Was it a teammate? Was it just you looking yourself in the mirror? Maybe walk us a little bit through that.
Football, I realized that probably in my grade 11 that football was my way out.
Okay.
Football was going to give me an opportunity. No, so grade 11, I would have been 16, 17.
I always get those wrong.
Yeah.
I always get those wrong.
Yeah, so I was about 16 or 17 when I realized, I said, man, I got a real opportunity. I'm now starting getting letters from Div 1 colleges, starting getting interest. And I was like, man, I got an opportunity to go to college. I could be the first one in my family, to get a university degree. No one's been to college. Wow. I don't even know how many people have graduated, that are family members. I don't know that, but I can guarantee none of them had gone to college at this point.
Even if you made it, do you even have a father that you can call and share the good news with?
No. And that's I get this question a lot. It's like, not growing up without your father, how has that affected you? And for me, it sucked. But by my father being absent has made me a better man today.
Oh, shit.
But having kids, it's like my kids will never go through that. They'll know who dad is. Dad is going to be there to support them.
Because
And I feel like my father has missed out on the man that I've become. To me, he's just a stranger.
I would say so.
But he knows that I was born. He got deported back to Nigeria. I remember we wrote a letter for him. And, we got a letter back from my father's wife, basically saying, don't contact us again. We want no contact with you, to my mom or the child, and that's, you talk about, I remember I was probably like 8 years old when we received that letter.
Taking the leap forward.
And it was like, I was so excited, to finally have some sort of interaction, that it wasn't even from my father, it was from my father's wife, that we got this letter from. And I was like, to me, I was like, that was a point in my life where, at a young age, I'm about 8 years old, where I was like, my kids won't go through that. And
what does a normal 8-year-old go through? It ain't nothing like that.
No, not at all. But I think in life, we're all going to be faced with different things, right? And we don't have choices of
it's just
how
a
we're
struggle
born into.
at such a young age.
Yeah.
Most of us and all of us have our own struggles.
Yep.
You can admit to that and attest to it. But most of our struggles we start facing maybe in our early to late teens, and we usually have somebody we can, put our head on a shoulder and talk to and conversate with and talk to teachers and things like that. So for you not to have that and still be able to find a way to make it happen, I wanted to ask you something important before we went a little further. Your sister, you had a sister.
Yeah.
May she rest in peace. She's no longer with us.
Yeah.
Was she still at home with your mom? Was she with a boyfriend? Was she older than you?
Yeah, my sister is 10 years older than me. My sister's got a phenomenal story. She if I think I had it bad, my sister had it 10 times worse.
Wow.
My sister, right from the get-go at a young age, was raised in foster care, and you talk about going through abuse, and she had the relationship with my mom and her, there was a lot of abuse between them. My mom beating my sister. You talk about abuse. My sister has gone through it. And I didn't even know half of the things my sister had gone through, because my sister's my best friend, and she was super protective over me. And she just didn't want me to know about the pain. But the University of Calgary did a documentary on her years back, and I'd known about it, but my sister wouldn't let me see the video. And then when she passed, I asked, my brother-in-law, I said, look, I want to see this. I want to know my sister's story. For me, it's like, I want to honor my sister. And, my sister was involved in gangs. She talked about like shooting up houses. I didn't know. Like, I knew my sister was a gangster, but, I didn't know she was doing drive-bys.
Yeah.
One of her biggest regrets was, it was, she ended up torturing people. It was like, you talk about, but being forced to do these things, it was.
How'd she pass away?
Baffling. So my sister, she passed away just last year. It's coming up on a year now in February.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
And it was extremely tough, but she had been struggling, her health, her lungs, because she had done such hard drugs when she was young, just like my mom. Her body just started to shut down. She needed a lung transplant. She was on the lung transplant list for I think over a year, and then she ended up getting a hole in her lung, and then the hole wouldn't close, and then things just went really bad.
Were you around when all this was going on?
No, because I lived in BC, so when she would get up in the hospital, I'd try and fly back and see my sister. But that was tough being away.
My sister's my best friend, man.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I can't even put myself in that place. You know what I mean?
And I don't think you can unless you've experienced that. Who wants to put themselves in that? You want to remember your sister as being your best friend.
Yeah.
Those precious memories, and that's what I do. But I'll never forget that. Because she'd been in and out of the hospital so many times that I'd seen her. I was like, okay, it was now becoming the norm. It was just everyday life, and I was like, okay, she'll be okay. She'll pull through. We'll get a lung transplant at some point. And then I'll never forget the last time I talked to her. I was speaking at a conference in BC. It was in Harrison, and I was up there for the week, and I got a phone call from my brother-in-law. He's like, bro, it's bad. We had to rush her to the hospital. They were living in Lloydminster at the time. They went to the hospital, Lloyd. They sent her to U of A hospital. They said, we can't help her here. And then I was like, okay, we've been on this road before. Call me in the morning. I can't just leave this conference. I'm here for 3 days.
Yeah.
Unless it gets, serious.
This is last year.
Yeah. This is February.
Yeah.
And then, so the next day he calls, to give an update. And then my sister is talking, and I was like, okay. So then I'm talking with my sister, and she's like, brother, it's bad. She's like, I think this is the end. And I was like, phew. that was tough. And then, and I never actually even spoke about this, but she's like, I don't think, I'm going to pull through. And I was like, don't talk like that. And then it was probably about 8 hours after that I got a call and they said she's in a coma. And I was like, phew. So then I talked to the organizers. I said, I might have to fly back, because I don't know what's going to happen. It's not looking good. My sister, she's in a coma. And then I was in touch with my brother-in-law. And then it came to, he had a meeting with the doctor, and the doctor said, it's a matter of days now. And so I was like, phew. I took off from the conference I was at. I flew home. I flew back here to Edmonton. And then I'm sitting with my sister and just watching her, and I'm like, man, this isn't her. This is a shell. They had a tube in her throat that was keeping her, or in her mouth, and that was keeping her alive. And I was like, my sister doesn't want to suffer. She's suffered long enough. Was
she responsive at all
to
you
nothing,
being there?
Nothing. And that's what was.
So that was truly the last conversation. Yeah.
That was the last conversation. And then so I remember just sitting there for hours, and then I flew my wife and the family, and then we had a meeting with the doctor, and then it was like we had to call immediate family, being like, look, this isn't good now. And so I remember having a conversation, and this was like probably the toughest decision I had to make was, she's not coming back. And so I was like, she can't suffer like this. And so it was my decision. I talked with my brother-in-law, and I said, we gotta pull the plug. This isn't her. My sister wouldn't want to sit here and suffer. She would want to be remembered as, someone. My sister loved to joke and laugh and she was just an outgoing person. And I said, this isn't her, and so she's too weak. That every procedure they were going to do, they said would kill her because her body was just too weak. They had one procedure, I can't remember what it was called, but the doctor came in and was like, JR, this will kill your sister 110%. There's no way she'll pull through. So now you talk about being tough as a man of faith, praying to God and being like, man, like, I want a miracle. We need a miracle. She's got to pull through. My sister had 10 kids,
10 kids?
Yeah, 10 kids. And I'm like,
were you close to any of them?
I was close, especially with the older ones. I was, and then the younger ones, it was just me moving away.
You were traveling.
It was tough. But it came to a point where I was like, we.
What were your options besides a few surgeries that were going to end up killing her?
There was really no option, to leave her on a tube. But
it was up to you to make the decision.
Yeah, I was the one that made the decision. It was the hardest thing, so your best friend, to have. I remember it just like it was yesterday. And I told, the doc, I said, he came in, gave me every alternative, which wasn't good. And I was just like, let's, do it. Like, I can't have my sister suffer like this as just a shell. And so I brought out the family in and I said, this is what we're going to do. And that was tough, and I took a lot of backlash for that, totally understandable. Nobody, from other family members, kids, and it's, and I get it, I couldn't imagine trying to pull the
whatever
plug,
you chose, you were going to suffer for it.
Yeah. But it came to a point of,
but somebody had to do it.
This is now a shell. This isn't my sister. This is the shell. Yeah. For me, it's like my sister has now moved on.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we respect her and honor her? And so I had the conversation with my brother-in-law and then with my wife and some of her kids. And, I said, this is what we're going to do. And that was the hardest thing. And it was probably like being in the room with her, watching her take her last breaths was probably the worst thing I think I could ever do. Because, for like months that haunted me. Just remembering her like that. I wish that I wouldn't have had those
you don't want
images.
Those to be the last memories of
I want it to be, me and my sister running around. Like when we did the funeral, we were looking through pictures, and I remember probably would have been like 3 years prior to when she passed. She was out visiting me in Vancouver, And after the game, she wanted to race me on the field, and I was running backwards, and she was running forward. But that was special. Like that's how I wanted to remember my sister.
Well, those are memories too.
And then it was, to now this, watching her take her last breaths, while being off the machine. I was like, man. So that was tough, man. That was definitely, I would definitely not recommend anybody being in the room when they're pulling the plug. That was something, I had nightmares, bro, for months. Like I went to travel right after my sister had passed. My schedule was so booked up that it was like, I got to go. I mean, I could have.
You weren't playing football at the time. You were doing your.
Yeah, I was speaking. I retired in 2014, so I was speaking full time since then. And I was like, man, like I got to go and do this work. I could have canceled it, but for me, that's how I was going to honor my sister. Through my story and sharing my sister's story, knowing that if I could just impact somebody to try and make a change, make a difference, that's what my sister would want. That's what my mother would want. And so, for me, it was like I left the very next day. I didn't even fly back home. I was straight on the road back to, I can't remember where I went. I think it was in Saskatchewan, speaking, and that carried on for like 3 or 4 days, went home. And then we flew back. My family, we flew back. No, we drove up for the funeral, and then boom, we drove home, and then I was back on the road again. And so for months, I didn't even grieve. I just kept myself so busy, because for me, I was like, this is just a nightmare. Like I want to wake up and then she'll be back, but I had to come to the realization that she ain't coming back. And so for months, man, like
just burying it.
Yeah. It was just I just kept myself so busy, but I did the exact same thing. When my mom passed away.
Your mom passed away in 2011?
In 2011.
Your mom's name, God rest her soul, is Bobby.
Yeah.
What was your sister's name?
Tina. The same thing when my mom passed away in 2011. Crazy story about that. So my mom was an addict. We talked about it earlier. Yeah. And so her body, started to shut down. And in the native, the Cree way, I guess, an owl represents like death. When you see it during the day, and so I remember I was crabbing in Vancouver with some of my friends, one of my best friends, and I had practice the next day, so I left, and so I was driving in my truck back home, and as I was driving home, it was probably about like 4 p.m, so it was sunny, middle of July, was like July 31st. That's what it was. My mom passed away August 1st. It was the end of July. Bright sunny day, and an owl swoops right in front of my truck. I could see it coming head on, and it just like
coming towards
me, and then was gone.
Middle of the day.
You don't see owls at night. You don't see owls during the day.
Yeah. Can't remember the last time I seen an owl.
Yeah. But it took me back to when my uncle passed away. Same thing. I was driving, and I was with my mom, I remember, and an owl swooped in front of the vehicle. The
same thing happened when your uncle passed away?
Yeah, when my uncle passed away. I was with my mom, and an owl flew in front of the car that we were driving in. I was younger, but I remember seeing it. And my mom was like, ooh, that's not good. Someone's going to pass away. And then sure enough, we find out my uncle passed away. So then I'm driving home. Owl swoops right in front of me, right in front of my truck. Like it literally looked like it was about to hit my windshield, and then just...
July 31st.
Yeah, July 31st. And then I was like, oh, man, that's not good. I just had a gross, sickening feeling.
Was your mom on her sick bed at that time, or was she just going about?
It's crazy. So my mom was coming home from Saskatchewan that day.
Okay.
It was almost like my mom knew she was going to pass on. She went and visited family back in our home reserve in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And then came home. And then the next day, she passed. Overnight, she passed away. She passed away in her sleep. And so it was like she knew she was getting ready to move on. And, that owl just, and then I get a call. I was at football practice, and they called me off football practice. And the general manager it was crazy how it worked out, because the assistant general manager came onto the field, and he pulled me from practice, like right in the middle of practice. And I was like, it's never good when the assistant GM comes on the field. It's like you're either getting traded or they're going to cut you. And I was just coming off an injury. I broke my arm. I was just coming off a broken forearm. So I was like, oh, man, like, are they going to trade me? Am I getting cut right now? He said, you need to come to my office right now. I said, okay, whatever. I go sit in his office. I sit down. He said, "JR, there's been a family emergency. You need to call home right now." And so my wife was visiting family in Edmonton at the time, and I called my wife and I was like, "Babe, what's going on?" And she was like, "They found your mom earlier this morning. Your mom ended up passing away." And I was like, man, broke down, because as much as I talked about my mom being a drug addict, I mean, my mom was my best friend too. Like, she was someone I had such a respect. Like, my mom was part of the residential school, and my mom was abused, and my mother was raped at a young age. And after hearing all the stuff that my mom had gone through and had to overcome, I was like, that's where I get my warrior spirit from. Is from my mom, knowing everything that she had to overcome. Yes, she was a drug addict. Yes, my mother was far from perfect, but at the end of the day, my mother brought me into this world. She did her very, very best. And so I never held any ill will towards my mom. So I remember breaking down in the assistant GM's office, and they told, at that time when I was in the office, one of the other guys came in and told the team what had happened. And I remember a bunch of my teammates coming in and just being there to console me, like hugging me. And so they flew me home that afternoon, right after practice. I went home, changed, and they sent me to the airport. And I flew home, and then I got the funeral arrangements all set up. But that happened. Yeah, August 1st, 2000.
Was this while you were in BC?
Yeah, that's when I was in BC.
2011.
Yeah, 2011. So it was, and that was the year we won the Grey Cup too. So it was like, you talk about trial, tribulation, going through it. Roller coaster of emotions. Like, I had broke my forearm. So how it all played out. So 2010, I broke my leg for the second time.
You played for the Eskimos before that.
Yeah.
How long did you play with the Eskimos?
4 years.
That was from
2005, 2009 was my last year. No, I was out in 2008. I was out the whole 2000. I broke my leg 2008 in Edmonton, snapped in half.
In Edmonton.
Shattered it.
I saw the video for that on YouTube.
So I did that. Signed BC 2010. Second last game of the season, playing against the Eskimos. Boom. Break my leg again. First play of the game. I'm pumped up. I'm ready to hit somebody. Boom. I run it back.
God just loves testing.
Yeah, man, right? It's like, come on.
You love testing. But hey, you passed, man.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with testing.
So I break it.
It's just amazing how much somebody can endure. Go on, sorry.
Yeah. And so I break it, and then I think my football career is done.
Was this your other leg you broke?
The same leg, bro.
Same leg?
Yeah, same leg.
Ouch.
And so I break it again twice. Boom, dislocate my ankle, tear the tendons in my foot. So now, I think my football career is done. The doctor, I remember the team doctor after, he's like, "JR, it's unheard of for anybody to come back from after breaking the same leg the way you've done it twice."
Did you break it in the same area?
It's like by inches. It was off.
Wow.
Yeah,
was it a femur?
No, it was the lower tib fib. But
Okay.
what kept me from shattering it, the first time, boom, snapped it right in half. Second time, it was, I have a titanium rod.
That was when you were playing for Edmonton, is when it was snapped.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a titanium rod in there now, so that's what saved it from snapping in half again.
Oh,
but because the rod was in there, my leg stayed planted in the ground, and I dislocated my ankle. So I broke I don't know if it was my tib or fib, whatever the outside bone is.
Yeah.
And then I dislocate my ankle, tear the tendons in my foot. So I'm out thinking my football career is done. 5.5 months go by into rehab. I'm running full speed again. The Lions, they call him Wally Bono's like, "We want you back on the team." So
what's full speed?
Like,
when you say full speed, what's isn't there a 4.5 seconds?
Oh yeah. So coming out, I was running 4.5, but after my leg injuries, I was 4.6. I'd run 4.6.
Okay.
Which is still moving for
football lingo. That's great. You're back on top.
And so they called me back and they're like, "Jerry, we want you back on the team." This is now 2011. I go to training camp, have a great training camp. Our last preseason game, we're playing the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Running back breaks through. Boom, I go in to make a hit, put my arm up, break my forearm. So I'm out 5 weeks. So when I got the cast cut off my forearm, I'm getting ready to play. I got my starting job back. I'm like, we're ready to go. And boom, that's when I got hit with my mom passed away, 2 days into our practice schedule. So dealing with that, the loss of my mom, and then coming back, I come back. And two games after we laid my mom to rest, 2 games after that, I have a high ankle sprain here in Edmonton, playing against the Eskimos. I go in to make a tackle. I missed the tackle, but an old lineman came and fell right on the back of my leg. Same leg that I broke. My God. Lands on the back. Thing bends. I thought I broke it. It was a high ankle sprain. Hurt way more than when I broke my leg before.
Yeah.
So now I'm out another 4 weeks. And I'm like, man, like, come on.
Was the team encouraging at this point? Were they asking you to take some time off? Was it you fighting back to get that position?
I think it's just part of the game. Like, it just happens. You know,
they just kind of let you be and you feel it out. You let them know where you're at by training and getting back out there.
No, it was yeah, well, they let me while I was out. You know, it was crazy as I lied to them too the first week because we had a bye week.
Yeah.
Which, you know, so we had a week off. So if you're hurt before bye week, you got to go back to BC and you got to go through the whole rehab. So I played 2 more plays, and then I was like, I couldn't put any weight. And so it was towards the end of the game. And so I waved my backup in, and he goes in, and then I'm the last person out of the dressing room. My family's waiting for me. And I took my cleat off, and my foot just ballooned, man. It was so swollen. And
because they always tell you not to take it off because it just gets so big.
And so I told our team trainer, his name was Billy, I said, Billy, like, you got to wrap me up. Like, I can't, you know, my legs flared up, but I said, I got to stay here in Edmonton, you know, for the bye week so I can see family. And so he helped me out. He was like, okay, well, we'll wrap it up or whatever. And so I stayed in Edmonton. And
crazy. I
came back the following week, and they're like, why aren't you ready to play? And I'm like, fuck, I had a high ankle sprain. You know, so now I remember now they can find me, you know, for not disclosing that I had an injury. So now they can take away my paycheck.
Okay.
You know, but because I think everything that had gone on through that year, they're like, there was some grace. They're like, you know, he's going through hell. You know, so
the devil
so I was
himself
out.
Give you a little bit
Right?
of grace there.
So they gave me the 4 weeks off. I came back, and then we went on a tear. Became first place CFL, you know, first round bye, played the Eskimos, Western Final, smashed them. And then now I'm playing the biggest game of my career, you know, the Grey Cup Championship in BC Place in front of 56,000 screaming fans. You know, you talk about an electric experience. I remember walking out.
That's not fair, man.
Yeah.
You were not supposed to experience that.
Right?
You were not supposed to experience that. That story and that thing that you just mentioned just do not match. How do you overcome such a large wall? Can I ask you one thing, though?
Yeah.
Just to change things up a little bit. When you went out there and I saw a video of you and you get down on one knee and then you do a bow and arrow towards the camera as you're coming out of the, what is that called?
The tunnel.
The tunnel.
Yeah.
When you come out and do that, what does that symbolize?
So that's me representing the First Nation side. Like, I'm so proud of being
First I thought Nations. So, but I wanted to hear from you.
So for me, it's like you see the videos on YouTube. I'll come out and it's like, I'm getting ready to go to war. So I'm looking for my opponent.
Oh, okay. That's what that was?
Yeah. Boom. Shoot the arrow towards the opposition.
Yeah.
And then I act out like I'm scalping, right? So I pick up the kill. Boom. Do the scalp. You know, lick the blade. Throw the scalp. Put it back, and then it's like I'm locked in. I'm ready to go.
Okay, I thought for a second that's it's cool. It looks awesome. It's kind of like that Ray Lewis dance, but you got your own version of it. But I wanted to know if that has everything, and it does to do with your heritage, who you are as a person, and you know, you obviously talked about being a man of faith.
Yeah.
Was there anything that there's so many things that happened to you, brother? But was there something that were you already a man of faith when all of this was going on?
You know, I was raised, when I lived with that one family, like I was in the church. You know, they're very religious, and I'm forever grateful, you know, for that opportunity that they introduced that faith to me. You know, it gives me that's what gave me hope, and just being able to have something to pray to. So for me, when I go through a lot of crappy situations, like I know that I'm able to pray. And, you know, I'm not one to ever knock any religion. You know, it gives people hope. And I think without hope, we're lost. What is our purpose in life without hope?
Agreed.
And so for me, that's what pushed me through a lot of things, was my faith. You know, you talk about, you know, my mother passing, my sister passing, you know, a whole lot of crappy situations. You know, what got me through it, a lot of it was my faith and having good people around me as well.
What does the JR stand for?
Junior. My first name, I'm named after my dad, so I'm a Losey Junior.
Okay.
Yeah, so I go by JR, and then it's I named my youngest son as well after myself. So he's a Losey the third. So we just keep it, and it's crazy.
And you have two boys.
So I have two.
How old are they?
15 and 12.
15
and 12. So,
wow.
Yeah, my love.
Proud daddy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Super proud, man.
Yeah.
Love
I was
my
talking
kids,
to you on the
man.
phone when you were dropping them off at school.
Yeah.
And you just sounded like you're having, you didn't even care that I was on the phone. I was like, this guy loves his kids.
Yeah.
Most people would be like, can you shut up? I'm on the phone. You were like the opposite. You're like, Omar, you shut up. I'm talking not in those words, but that's the vibe I got, which is great.
Yeah.
Great father.
Yeah, no, my kids are my why. My wife, my two boys, that's my why. Why I work so hard to provide a life that, they're able to enjoy, a life that I never had as a child. I want, how you talk about how do we break cycles, generational curses. I'm trying to be the change that I want to see. I want my kids to look at dad and see like, man, my dad worked his ass off. There's no reason why I can't have all these things, but it comes from hard work. We're not looking for any handouts. I won't go to the welfare system if I have the ability to work. And nothing against people that collect, that are on the system, are on welfare. There are people that are in a position where they can't work. They have to try and look after their kids.
Maybe they just don't know that it's actually out there that you can do it.
But there are also a lot of people that take advantage of the system.
Yeah, of course.
And for me, I'm not one to make it, condone any type of excuses, especially, that just take advantage of the system. I don't want my kids to ever be part of that system.
Yeah.
That's a choice.
Yeah.
And I set that example at home. Yeah. My wife sets that example at home that we will work. They will work. There are no handouts. You're not going to live off daddy's name. You're your own person. I harp this on my two boys, because oftentimes it's so easy for them to try to be like, well, I'm a Larose. My dad is.
It is a cool last name.
Oh, it is. It's great. And I want them to have pride in that. But at the same time, it's like you're making your own way now. I'm my own person now. You're Alozie the Third. You're Cottrell. You're your own human being.
Yeah.
You're going to make your own way, and I'm here to support it. My wife's there to support it. That's what it's about.
And now, I mean, you won the Grey Cup in 2011.
Yeah, 2011. Yep.
That was the year your mom passed.
Yep.
What did you do after football? Obviously, you had lived the dream as far as being a young boy from Canada, loving the game of football, falling in love with it right off the bat, to going through everything you went through, to making it on that field in the hometown of the team that you played for, playing for the greatest trophy this country has to offer in that sport. And I see pictures of you hoisting the Grey Cup.
Yeah.
And it's mind-blowing hearing your story and then seeing your video, because your videos on YouTube are very motivational. You obviously found your why, but it seems like a lot about you is giving back.
Yeah.
So I obviously know that you're trying to have people, anybody that might be struggling with some of the same things that you went through, whether it was abuse or not having a father.
Yeah.
Do you instill that in not just your own kids, but you're going around? Are you speaking to the youth? Are these adults you're talking to? Like what's that? When did you get into that after football?
So I started speaking actually in 2008 when I was here playing with the Eskimos. They did the stay in school program, stuff like that. And then for me, I was like, man, I got a story. I want to just talk about more than just, the importance of staying in school. I want to share my story with so many other people. Yeah. Because for me, it was
not
like
just a rainbow.
Yeah, but I remember Henry Gizmo Williams coming to my school and sharing his story, when I was in grade 6. And I was like, man.
He's my favorite player.
Oh, I love the kid. I wore number 2, in high school because of him.
Yeah. And you were number 43.
With the Eskimos.
Yeah,
and then 27. Yeah, okay. with BC. But, I was like, his story was so relatable. I was like, man, the struggles that he's gone through. I was like, man, I'm facing this right now. And he's living his dream playing professional football. So I wanted to be exactly like that man. So when I retired 2014, I had an opportunity to speak full time. Like I was doing it every off season when I wasn't playing, and then retired, boom. Like now, okay, let's take this thing to a whole nother level. Let's do this thing full time. And I was able to do that. And so I speak to youth, I speak to adults, communities, workplaces, you name it. And it's a message of hope, but also a message of not allowing your situation to become your excuse in life. Far too often, a lot of us have that victim mentality. Why me? I'm this way. I'm struggling because I had a terrible upbringing. My family wasn't around. I didn't have that support. But at the end of the day, if you want change, you've got to pick yourself up and do it. Nobody else is gonna do it for you. And that's what I learned. It's just life experiences, knowing that if I can give hope to somebody else that has a dream, then that's what this is all about. This is about inspiring, doing something that I wish I had when I was a child. And I did have that by Henry Gizmo Williams, sharing his story. So when I go to these schools, it almost puts me back. When I'm speaking in a school, whether if it's, 100 people, 40 people to a couple thousand people, it always brings me back to being like, some kid out there is just like me.
Was looking sitting at Gizmo Williams.
Is, you know what I mean? And I remember this one kid, he dedicated his very first football game to me. This kid was out of Saskatchewan, and his name was Dre. And he sent me a message a few years ago. He's like, I dedicate my very first football game to J.R. Larose. You inspired me to start playing football. And I said, man, this is what it's all about.
Of course.
Because oftentimes I don't know the type of impact that I'm really,
exactly.
that you're making.
Exactly.
In and out. I go and speak in these communities, and I'm out, I'm on to the next. So
you don't see the repercussions of your conversation unless you actually dig deeper or you get reached out to.
And so, like, I love I'll get letters from other kids. And I was just on this Medicine Hat tour at the beginning of September for a whole week. And it was a grind, bro. Like, I was doing 3 schools a day. And so if you've ever like spoken and shared your life story or whatever, it's emotionally draining. So,
of course.
And I never do 3. Like, if I tell people it's like 2 tops, boom, I'm done.
Of course.
And so the guy that I'd worked with, he was like, Jared,
I can't handle listening to it twice, let alone you saying it.
And it's like I gotta laugh at my same
jokes. You know what I mean?
Like,
I can't handle it, like going through it again.
So, but he was like, I put it out in the email for the teachers, and it's like, you booked up so fast, the people wanted you more. And I was like, well, I respect that. That's cool, but it's tough. But that was probably one of the most powerful speaking tours I'd ever been on. I had parents reaching out that weren't even there listening to my story, but their kids went back and shared, what they had heard and how it impacted them. And I was like, that's what this is all about. Leaving an impact like that, having the ability to touch someone's life is sometimes I think we take for granted. Just a simple hello can go such a long way for people.
I seen a story online where a girl shared a story with you about her mom passing away, and it was the same year.
Yeah.
Did you just meet her? Did she come up to you?
Yeah, she came up to me after.
Sorry to cut you off, but I had that image in my head of being online, checking that out.
Yeah.
But what is that really what happened? Like what was that?
It was I'd finished speaking at a high school, and this girl came up to me after. I was signing autographs, and then she's like, "Can I talk to you?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." And so she pulled me aside or whatever, and she's like, "JR, it's I can really relate to your story." She's like, my mom is the same name or has the same name as your mom, and
her mom's name was
her name was Bobby too. Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was a trip. I was like, man. And then she was like, my mom passed away the same year your mom passed away. And I was like, man, like you know when you meet somebody, you make a connection. I was like, man, I was like I felt her pain. But the crazy thing, bro, was she just gave me a hug. She broke down, started crying, and gave me a hug, and it was just like, thank you. Wow. That was probably, it just hit, like it just felt so good, but I felt her pain, like when I hugged her. And then I think it brought me back to me being a kid as well. Like, she had talked about being abused as well. And I was like, this girl maybe 14 years old. And, she's living that right now, and I lived that, and I was able to overcome that. But for me, it's like, I'm just living my life. This is just what I've done. But for her, that's hope, knowing that she can get through to the other side. Yeah. And that's like, I was like, this is what, really drives me to continue to do the work that I do, is that, having the ability to do that.
She's using it probably in the same way you would have used it had you had some of the same opportunities that you're giving these kids. What is there anything that scares you about the future, especially when we're talking about you having 2 young men? What is there anything that scares you about the future of the youth?
It's a crazy world we live in now. You talk about social media, with the technology. I didn't have that growing up, but I don't think it necessarily scares me. But I'd be a fool to say that I'm not concerned. For me, I just try and model what it truly is to be a man. Because I'm trying to raise my 2 young boys to respect women. To to treat everybody like that, like that's their sister. At the end of the day, that's a human being, you know, regardless if it's a female, a male, whatever sex or whatever you choose to go, transgender, whatever it is you identify with, that's a human being. You know, that person needs to be treated with the utmost respect, regardless. And, you know, you talk about, I harp on my boys about leadership. And it's someone that's willing to go against the grain, something, you know, to stand up for what they truly believe in. You know, you look at people, there's way too many cowards out there that don't stand up for what they believe in. And that's not the type of man that I want to raise. I'm trying to raise guys that are willing to do it. And I'm far from perfect. You know, my kids are going to make mistakes, but one thing I tell my kids is you don't have to be defined by the mistakes that you make. You know, you're defined by what you do after you've made that mistake. And that's the big thing. You know, because I've made mistakes, you made mistakes, we've all made mistakes. But at some point, we've had to pick ourselves back up and be like, okay, I got to create.
It's how we
pick ourselves back up, right? And it's learning from our mistakes. That's the biggest thing, you know. And so that's for me. It's like I'm just trying to be the best father, you know, because I didn't have nobody teach me. Yeah, you know, it is trial and error. You know, it's you know, for me, it's just being present when I'm home. It's being present at home. You know, because I do travel so much. You know, it's my kids want to go out. Oh, let's go and do something. And especially my youngest son, that boy got so much energy. He got so much damn energy.
Do they have that natural athleticism in them? Are they
do.
Wanting to play sports?
Yeah.
Are they in sports now?
Yeah, they both play. My oldest just plays football. And he loves that. He's very good at it. And my youngest, he does football and hockey.
So you encourage them to play
I encourage them to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
You know,
so you're not one of those fathers that push them to play football because you played football. No. They kind of naturally gravitated to sports that they love, whether it's hockey, football.
Yeah. And I just love this.
Keeps them out of trouble. That's why we all joined sports.
Keeps them busy. Yeah, right.
It kept me busy. Kept me out of prison.
That's the biggest thing. Because if you don't have anything, it's like now you start looking at, you know, you become bored. And so let's hang out with friends. Let's hang out at the mall. Let's do something. And then it's just like, just
one idea leads to another, game of telephone.
And the next thing you know, it's like I get a phone call and it's like, you know, it's the cops or something like that. And so I'm just grateful that they love sports. You know, they're both very, very good at it. And, you know, as a dad, I just love being a fan. I'm a big fan. And I think sometimes I coach my oldest son. I coach both kids when they played football.
So you're still involved in football?
I'm still involved. Okay,
I'm still involved. It's a true love all through and through.
And what was really cool was not last year, the year before, my oldest son, he won provincials, and I was the head coach on his team, and so provincials you get to play in BC Place. And so it was cool to win a provincial championship with my oldest son in the same place that I won a Grey Cup championship. Wow. So that was super special. And then the spring before that, leading up to that school year, I'd won a provincial championship with my youngest son. And so that year was just a year filled with championships. But being able to coach your kids and win championships in a sport that you love playing was something that was, you know, special. It's just these little moments, you know, that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And for me, it's just like, you know, I'm super proud of my kids, whatever they choose to do. But, you know, as a sports guy, you know, that's just icing on the cake.
I'm sitting here trying to feel so bad for you, bro, but I just can't do it. Every time I get a sense of like, I feel bad for him, in my mind just doesn't let me go there, because you've lived a full life of ups and downs. We talk about life being tragic. All life is tragedy in a way, but I think it's definitely how we bounce back. But I think without that tragedy, without that suffering that you went through, without the hunger, literally that hunger that you went through, you would have never really enjoyed that meal, enjoyed that love when you had it, enjoyed the presence of family when it was there. Yeah. Obviously, you've been through something most of us can't even fathom, and I get that. But if I had my choice, and I don't mean to downplay anything you've said, because like I said, your story blows me right the fuck away. But if I had my choice of sitting at home and being safe and having none of those things happen, you know, mom's fine, dad's fine, but I didn't do anything with my life. I was just, everything was safe. I would choose your life. Now that I'm older, I can say that. 5 years ago, I would never want suffering. Suffering sucks. Yeah. But lately, and I've been listening to guys such as yourself, Jordan Peterson, where they start talking about that life is truly suffering, but it's you that controls how much suffering there is.
Yeah.
Do you choose to just let it bury you, or do you try to climb out of it and have a heroic story, as Joe Rogan says, where you're the hero of your own movie? I'm not saying I'd rather your life because it was easy. I'm saying if it made you the man you are today, I'd almost want life to keep testing you, because I want to see how far you can take it, how much you can give back.
Yeah.
So if you know what I mean, it's I don't mean to downplay it. I just mean it in the nicest way possible, is that if struggles made you who you are now, I would hate to see J.R. Larose with family intact, father always there, food always present, you know what I mean? Yeah. Clothing, home, got given everything, paid through football, whatever the case may be. I don't think we'd be having this conversation.
Yeah, no.
It wouldn't be as impactful as these conversations you're having with these kids. Do you come to Edmonton often?
Yeah, I'm here probably at least once a month.
You have a lot of friends.
And a lot of work that I still do out here. So in the Alberta area and in Edmonton as well. So I come back. I'll be quite a bit more, actually, but at least twice a month in the new year moving forward. So,
if you had a message for people listening, young kids, what is your message? Like, what do you want people to take away from your story, besides the obvious, besides being inspired? What is it that you not are hopeful for, but what do you want to leave behind as a legacy, where somebody could take that away and say, you know, I learned this from JR, or this is what inspired me from him? What is your message? What is your hope? What's your challenge to people?
I think my challenge is don't allow your situation. You know, that's my favorite quote. Don't allow your situation to become your excuse in life. You know, you look at it, you can't have that victim mentality. I was a kid that grew up not knowing his father. I was a kid that was sexually abused. I was a kid that had a mother that struggled with addictions. You know, but I still made it. You know, but it comes down to your why. What really motivates you? And for me, I really put things in perspective. I remember the one time, my last year playing pro football, I had met a guy at the Children's Hospital in Vancouver, a young kid. His name was Charlie, and Charlie had cancer. You know, and it didn't look good for my man Charlie. But he had reached out to the community relations department and said, you know, I was his favorite player, and I had coached him 2 years prior to that at camp out in Comox on the island.
He used to play football?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so they reached out to me. Our community events people, our community relations department reached out to me, said, you know, this kid he's got cancer, but he wants to, you know, you're his favorite player. You know, can you do an appearance? Just stop by. And I remember pulling up to the children's place and being scared, but I walked into that room, and as soon as I walked in, you know, he had the biggest smile on his face.
Yeah.
And it was just such a big, you know, sigh of relief, because I didn't know what I was walking. Like, I knew he had cancer, but I was like, I'd never met the kid before. I coached him at the camp, but you coach so many kids, you interact with so many people, you know, throughout the year, especially with the work that I do. And so I remember I met with him that day, and then we had a great time. I was like, I got to see him again. So I remember we were getting ready to fly to Winnipeg to play the Blue Bombers. And the day before we flew out, I went and visited my man Charlie. And no, sorry, let me back it up. I'd known him for like a couple weeks now. So the day before our one game, I had got a hat made up that said Team Charlie. I got towels that I wear always on the back of behind my just a towel behind on my back or whatever. Yeah. And I had Team Charlie on it, and TSN gave him a big shout out. I reached out to Farhan. I said, man, can you guys get this guy some airtime? Like, I'm just trying to give him some hope. And so they gave him a big shout out on TSN. Yeah. And then that following week, I'm visiting Charlie, and my boys, they give him some. I think they'd given him a couple of bosses, something we had signed, and we gave it to Charlie. And so I'm sitting there, and I asked him, I said, Charlie, I said, if there's one thing you could do, what would it be? And he said, I would give anything to have one more opportunity to play football again. And then I remember I flew to Winnipeg, and probably about an hour and a half before kickoff, I got a text message saying Charlie had passed on, and broke my heart. But it was probably the best game I'd ever played in my life. Really? You know, it was like me and Charlie, that was my dude, that was my little buddy. And the way I put things in perspective, and my challenge to people is like, when we're having a shitty day, we got to realize that there's other people that have it 10 times worse than what we really have it. And for me, it's like, if I'm still breathing, I have the ability to walk. sometimes we just take that for granted. I got all for my legs work, my hands work, everything works. I'm fine. But sometimes it's like, oh, it's so easy for us to be like, oh, I'm having a shitty day. Oh, poor me, poor that. But for me, my man Charlie, all he wanted to do was have one more opportunity to play football with his friends. He was 15 years old. Yeah, he'll never be able to do that again. Yeah. And so for me, it's like, am I really having a bad day? Or could it be 10 times worse?
Of course.
And so any day above ground is a good day, because I could be below ground.
Yeah.
Right. And that's my challenge to people is when you're going through that, really put it in perspective. Like, is it really that bad? Or just know that other people have it way worse, and know that you have the ability to change how you're going to live the rest of that next second. You have the ability to change what's going to, how you're going to live that out.
Yeah.
So.
We were talking on the phone when you were in Van before you flew out here. We were talking about broken bones. I was telling you, I've had 24 broken bones in my body. And it's so funny how one day we're feeling like Superman. Yeah. And I can't even imagine at your level, but one day you're feeling unstoppable, and the next day you're being rolled to bed and being helped and being helped to move and learn how to walk again and physio. Yeah. It's just amazing how much the body can take and keep going. That it surprises you that you still are in the health that you're in now, and you probably still run like a gazelle. Even though, maybe not a gazelle, maybe not 4.5.
A little bit of a stretch, but it's
Have you timed yourself recently?
No, I refuse to do it now. I'll probably tear hamstrings and my Achilles doing that now, but
for sure.
No, I think life's challenges, man. It's how we bounce back from it, man. I couldn't even imagine breaking 24 bones. I broke 2 bones, and that was 3. That was enough for me.
They weren't big bones.
It doesn't matter. A break's a break, man. It sucks. The recovery of that sucks.
Yeah.
And I feel every time I see people, on crutches, it's like, man, I used to chafe so bad underneath here with them damn crutches. Oh, it sucks.
Yeah.
And I remember being in wheelchair bound the first, anytime we went out, my wife had to push me in that wheelchair. Bro, you talk about feeling vulnerable, like, as an athlete, we're A-type.
Especially A-type. When
it's
going
like
from
you're top of our
status
food, top of your food chain. Alpha male. I tell people you train to be like modern day gladiators.
You're used to carrying your wife.
Yeah, and now my wife's there pushing
you.
me around. I remember having a conversation with my wife. Said, "Babe, I feel so I couldn't even something happened. Somebody tried me. I couldn't even protect you or nothing. It's I hated that feel." I said, "Look, we're gonna stay in the house until I can walk." Before. But you know what I mean? It's but you take things for granted until it's taken away, and it's like, whew. But I'm healthy. I feel good now.
You look good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
How old are you?
I'm 30. I had to think about that. I'm 34.
You do not look it.
Yeah, 34.
Thank you. Definitely do not look 34. How long have you and your wife been together for?
Oh, since they can put me on the spot. We're recording this right now.
We'll edit this part out. Give them time to think, and then we roll again.
We've been together since I was 19.
That's how you know it's true love. You're not timing it.
Yeah,
it's just a forever thing.
It's forever and ever. That's what I tell my wife all the time. With me
do you like how I saved them there?
Yeah, right. I appreciate.
I got your back.
I know we've been married since 2000. So 12 years we've been married.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can tell you that.
I can tell you that.
Yeah, I can tell you that.
I appreciate you making the time, man, to come out here. And
thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I really do.
This is a thing that we do before we leave. Where is it? Vocalese. It's a honey throat spray.
Okay.
We're supposed to do this at the beginning, not at the end. But we'd like you to use it because we get paid a lot of money for this.
Okay. Well, I'm spraying it in my mouth.
Yeah, it's a honey throat spray.
Okay.
It's supposed to make you sound better, but it's too late now.
All right.
He's like, how about I tell you another story?
There we go. It wasn't too bad, actually.
So maybe since you've sprayed it now, we're not going to cut you off there.
Can we pause it? I gotta pee so bad.
Oh no! Then we're ending the podcast right here. We're just gonna edit and then rewind it. You know where the bathroom is?
Yeah, I do.
You go find the bathroom.
I'm moving around. I'm pitching. I was like, oh man, I gotta pee.
I love the way that just ended. That's perfect.
I'm so sorry,
Get the hell out of here.